This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Vigil for Jack and Lilly. People gathered tonight for the Pictou County children who've been missing for nearly 6 months.
Running dry. Nova Scotians who rely on dug wells are now considering drilling new, deeper ones.
And Blue Jays fever. Halifax businesses are cashing in as local fans flock to cheer on the team.
A quiet Thursday across the province, all the focus on Friday with the wind and the rain that's on its way for Halloween. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. A candlelight vigil is being held tonight in Pictou County for Lilly and Jack Sullivan.
The two kids have been missing now for nearly 6 months.
The CBC's Ali Thompson is at the event in Stellarton and joins us now to tell us more. Ali.
Hi, yes, I'm outside the RCMP detachment here in Stellarton, where people have already started gathering for this candlelight vigil this evening. This is also the site of where a memorial was set up earlier this year for Jack and Lilly. You might be able to see a lighthouse, stuffed animals, flowers, and the community members have told me that the RCMP had requested the memorial be taken down for the winter, that it be dismantled and taken out of the elements. So that's part of the reason for this vigil this evening. It's also coming up to 6 months since Jack and Lilly went missing, and today is Jack's 5th birthday. People who are close to Jack tell us that he is a serious boy, that he loves to play with tractors, that he loves to play with dump trucks, and that this week has been really, really hard for them. So it is expected to be a somber event this evening. Lilly, his sister, smiles all the time. She lives in her own little play world and always takes her brother along with her. Their mother, Malaya Brooks Murray, released a statement a few weeks ago and said that there isn't a second that goes by that she doesn't think of her children, that she just wants them home. And she also thanked everyone who's been working on this investigation for the past 6 months.
Ali, what more might you be able to tell us about what will unfold at the vigil tonight?
Well, we'll hear from Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon. He's the district commander of the Pictou County RCMP, and he's expected to say a few words this evening. He also spoke at the last vigil that took place 1 month after the children went missing. It took place right in this very spot. As for the case, we know that cadaver dogs searched the property where the children went missing and other areas of Lansdowne in late September, but they did not find human remains. RCMP Major Crimes has been involved since the beginning, and they say they have not slowed down their investigation. They've been following up on hundreds of tips, thousands of videos. So they have not slowed down in that investigation and say they will not stop until they find out what happened to Lilly and Jack. Tonight, we also expect to hear from the warden of Pictou County, Robert Parker. He's expected to read a prayer, and other people, loved ones of Lilly and Jack Sullivan are expected to read a poem and may also say a few words here at the Stellarton detachment of the RCMP.
Yeah, no doubt it will be an emotional night. Thanks, Ali. That's Ali Thompson reporting live for us tonight from Stellarton.
In the space of just 48 hours in April of 2016, Tyrell Peter DeChamp murdered 2 men and seriously wounded a third. Well, today he was sentenced for one of those killings. Court was told that DeChamp walked up to a car on Gottingen Street and opened fire. He wounded the driver and killed Naricho Clayton, who was sitting in the passenger seat. DeChamp pleaded guilty to second-degree murder back in September. Today, a judge ruled he must serve 12 years before he can begin applying for parole. Clayton's family told the judge about what it means to have lost him.
It's reopened a lot of wounds for us, re-traumatized us a lot. It's been a long time coming, and our family, we're glad that it's over.
Words can't explain how I feel, the loss of my son, but I know he's with me each and every day.
2 days before he killed Clayton, DeChamp killed basketball star Tyler Richards. He was convicted of first-degree murder in that case, meaning he must actually serve 25 years before applying for parole.
As drought-like conditions continue in the province, some people that rely on dug wells are seeing them run dry. As the CBC's Juliana Grillo reports, some are considering drilling new wells, which run deeper into the ground, making them more reliable in future dry spells.
Nancy Grove and Peter Gale moved to this house over 30 years ago. But their well has been used by the community of Baxter's Harbor for 2 centuries.
The house was built here because of that spring. It's an artesian well, so that means it bubbles up from way down below through the rock, and we never expected it to go dry.
When it dried this summer, Grove relied on water from the local community center down the road and says a neighbor let them put a hose through their properties, sharing their water. But after looking at the forecast for weeks, one thing became clear to them. This wasn't going away. So they drilled a 91-meter deep well earlier this month. The new well cost around $20,000. Grove says it was a worthwhile investment.
There's a certain amount of sadness to give up to retire the old well because it's been so great for so many years.
Like Nancy and Peter, many Nova Scotians find themselves in a similar situation. They have a well that it's dried and they're considering drilling. But should they do it? A hydrologist tells us there are more factors to consider. Drilled wells are expensive, so this professor says it is up to homeowners to assess how much they can rely on water sources until the water table replenishes, which could be in the spring.
Many dug wells will come back. This is not going to go on forever, and it could be years before we get another sort of extraordinary drought like we have. But the bottom line is, if one decides to drill a well, they are more secure.
Spooner suggests calling municipalities to inquire about financial aid, since some of them offer loans for people building new wells. He also says that before putting a drill on the ground, homeowners should learn about the geology of the land. If they don't, they risk drilling in the wrong place and getting no water.
What kind of water are they getting from their wells? Because as a person who's had perhaps a dug well or even a reservoir on the surface, you know your water and you know the quality of your water.
According to the Canadian Drought Monitor, the province has received less than 40% of its normal rainfall. With no end in sight, people on wells are worrying about the winter because that's when the ground freezes up and it is harder for moisture to seep in and replenish the water table. Juliana Grillo, CBC News, Port Williams.
The forecast is calling for rain and strong winds to arrive on our doorstep this Halloween. And that sparked a debate on whether to change the annual event to a different day. As the CBC's Kyle Moore tells us, some are making plans to do just that.
You can partly blame Hurricane Melissa for what will be a wet and windy Halloween in parts of Nova Scotia.
This is the system we've been keeping track of for the last couple of days, and it is indeed looking set to bring rain and wind in for Nova Scotia throughout the day on Friday.
While some parts of the province will see clearing before the trick-or-treaters hit the streets, Cape Breton will get the brunt of the bad weather, and that's promoted some communities like Eskazoni to change the date. Trick-or-treaters there will knock on doors on Thursday.
We went through harsher Halloween, snowstorms and rainstorms, whatever. But end of the day, we thought about the kids.
Meanwhile, the Sydney airport will hold trick-or-treating indoors on Friday, with many other communities doing the same. Chief Leroy Denny says it's all about safety for his community.
If it's raining and it's going to be darker, it's going to be colder, and it's just everybody's going to be in a rush and running around, and it is about safety, and it's for the kids, and we just want them to enjoy their time.
The pending weather has led to a debate in Cape Breton if Halloween should be moved. That's not something the Cape Breton Regional Municipality is considering.
If you feel it's a safety issue for yourself or your kids, by all means, you should stay home. But, to try to change these conditions for 100,000 residents and businesses alike, the police chose not to do it.
Trick-or-treating hours here in the CBRM will remain between 5:30 and 7:30 on Friday. Cape Breton Regional Police saying in a social media post that weather can be unpredictable and that families can make individual plans on how they will celebrate.
We can't make a decision based on what your beliefs and what you believe for your own children. We're basing it on, the fact that it's rain and wind and, these events happen.
Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
And speaking of the weather, here's Ryan Snoddon.
I guess we can be thankful it's not snow.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, it is going to be inconvenient for sure. Now, for much of the province, it is looking more favorable for trick-or-treater time. No question about that. Let's look at the outlook and the model that's showing us this rain coming in. This is Thursday evening into the overnight. Again, this is holding hands with Melissa, so we've got some tropical moisture up into this front. That means heavy downpours, the risk for thunderstorms, and these gusty winds, which are going to be on the way as well. Friday throughout the morning into the afternoon, but by the time we get to Friday evening, a good portion of the province will have cleared. Yes, Cape Breton looking the least likely to see that clearing. High-resolution model, spooky, yes, 4 p.m. You can see even already western areas of the province seeing that clear out. Metro, Halifax up towards Truro, Amherst, Colchester, Cumberland on the doorstep. That clear out between 5, 6, 7 p.m. looks pretty likely, so perhaps a delayed start here. But eastern areas of the mainland and especially Cape Breton are looking unlikely to clear in time for the kids to go out, especially Cape Breton. So garbage bags on top of the costume. So possible solution there.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
More than 3 months have passed since the province abruptly switched service providers and halted intakes at 2 supportive housing sites in Halifax. Now, a senior official with the province says the dust has finally settled from that shakeup and new residents are once again being accepted. Jamie Smith, the executive director of Housing and Homelessness, says intakes had to stop while damaged units were renovated and out of consideration for existing residents.
Transitioning service providers causes a bit of unknown for people who are residing there, and they're the most important part of the work that we do. So we want to ensure that they felt safe and secure, that they had time to get to know the new service providers, and that, of course, they had a safe and more respectful place to be residing in.
The province dismissed the nonprofit that was running the 2 operations in July and brought in a new one. Officials said at the time it was because the operator was failing to address unsafe living conditions and criminal activity.
Okay, so Blue Jays fans and bandwagoners are gearing up for a huge game tonight, and they're not the only ones celebrating the team's success.
Some Nova Scotia businesses are riding an unexpected boost in sales. Carolyn Ray has that story.
For Jays fans, this has been a month of celebration, pure joy as they ride the wave of playoff victories. And businesses in Nova Scotia are sharing in on that success. Fans are packing bars on what are typically quiet nights.
Game 1 saw about 300 people. We got caught slightly unawares for that.
These empty seats have been filled well into the wee hours as the time zone puts baseball loyalty to the test. But Monday's record-breaking game forced fans to leave around inning 14.
We can't have people staying here past 2 a.m. I believe we probably would have been in around inning 14 at that stage. But at any rate, unfortunately, we do have to close at some point.
So you had to send people home not knowing if they won or lost?
That is correct.
Even that last Monday's game, which was nuts, going to 18 innings, we had deliveries going until 2 a.m. It was insane. So we're definitely seeing the spin-off from the Blue Jays for sure.
The crew at Tony's Pizza are in the midst of a Blue Jays marathon, pie after pie, going out the door. Each win for a Canadian team has meant a win for business, and they're bracing for Friday, Halloween, typically the busiest night of the year for pizza parlors, let alone the addition of a critical World Series game.
We're ready for it. It's going to be a doubleheader per se on our end, between Halloween and families ordering pizzas ahead of time, and then the 9 p.m. game comes along, and go Jays go, we got to bring it home.
And for those on the hunt for a last-minute show of team pride, flags are flying off the shelves in this Dartmouth store, being sent across the country. Staff here guess they're seeing 20 times the usual number of sales this week.
And people are having parties, people are hanging them up at work, so it's good to see them being used all over the place.
However the series ends, the team has made its mark on the local economy, and these businesses and fans are hoping this is just the first of many playoff streaks that we'll be celebrating over the next few seasons. Carolyn Ray, CBC News, Halifax.
And there's a look through the lens of our harbor cam. Ryan is up next with the full weather forecast. We're back on the other side of the break.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
All right, I have clear garbage bags. Hopefully we won't need them on Halloween.
Not everybody will need them, at least, right?
No, looking quite likely now. Western parts, the Tri-County, the Valley, South Shore, it would take a big change in what we're seeing right now to put you folks back into the rain zone. It looks like that will have cleared. Metro to Truro, that central area, that's where it's really iffy, and folks in the east will be hoping that it moves faster on its way out. We'll get to all of that. First, a beautiful sunset right now. Live shot. This is Halls Harbor, and yeah, really, really nice evening with pretty quiet conditions across the province out there right now. Temperatures high single, low double digits, and yeah, those northeast winds have been lighter today. The clouds have certainly been in the mix with this system kind of spinning just off to our south. and it's way off to the south that we're still watching Melissa, and that hurricane has been continuing to lose steam as it's been pulling away from eastern Cuba and into the Bahamas over the last couple of hours. Still about a sustained wind near 150 kilometers per hour, so pretty strong Cat 1 still as this system, this storm does continue to track off to the north. And again, Melissa's moisture will be lifting up into this frontal boundary that we're tracking for Friday. Overnight lows tonight in the mid-single digits. The winds are going to be light. We'll see fog patches setting up. And for tomorrow, those fog patches are going to dissipate. And then we're looking at temperatures are right around 13, 14 degrees tomorrow afternoon with those light winds across Cape Breton. 15 at Antigonish, 13 to 14, 15 degrees through central areas tomorrow as well with those light winds. And back into the west, a quiet day for Thursday here as well, 13 to 15 degrees. I'm expecting that it's going to be very similar today. Very variable clouds, some sunny breaks, but the clouds will likely dominate a little more than the sun does as that, again, cloud deck is going to remain in place. Friday, very different story. The rain and yes, the wind is going to be a factor as well. Note the temperatures, 16, 17 degrees. Rainfall totals with this system are looking set to range between about 30 to 50 millimeters. There's possibility of some heavier pockets that exceed 50 millimeters. It's going to be most likely here across the southwest along that Atlantic coastline. That's where we could push up again to some totals higher than that, and perhaps a little bit less towards the north and east and into Cape Breton, especially that North Shore and into Inverness County. But we're going to see a lot of heavier downpours with this system and the potential for some thunderstorms. So I'm expecting once again to see some variable totals with this. There's the tropical moisture that's streaming up into this system, and we are looking at that very wet overnight, beginning overnight in the west, but most of us beginning early Friday morning. Cape Breton mid to late Friday morning and continuing into the afternoon. And there's that clear out, as we said, from west to east and those strong southeast winds. Still gusty from the west to southwest, but not nearly as strong. That timeline, again, the clear out through the Friday late afternoon into early evening for western areas. There's Halifax and even around Cobequid Bay and Truro and Colchester, Cumberland. That's where it's really going to be right around 5, 6 o'clock. We're going to be checking the radar. We're going to be perhaps delaying our start just a little bit. Pictou, New Glasgow, Antigonish, Sheed Harbour, Guysborough County. This is where, if you can push it till 7 o'clock, we might get lucky and see that heaviest rain ending. Cape Breton, get ready for, preparing to go out in the rain. And note these spotty showers still in behind this main line. So we'll still see a chance for showers Friday evening. But again, it's that wettest of weather we want to kick out. There's Saturday. Couple of showers firing up because of the cold air aloft and the wind on Saturday. It's really going to be howling with this system, ushering in that much cooler air. There's the winds on Friday, gusting 50, 70 kilometers per hour. Could see some coastal gusts to 80. That's most likely in Cape Breton, where we're going to be seeing some gusts to 110 in the Lacewet winds. And there's Saturday, west winds, which are going to be howling 60, 70 kilometers per hour. Could see some gusts to 80 and 90 along coastal areas, especially the Tri-County and into Cape Breton. So Saturday is really going to be feeling November-ish. That's going to be ushering in that cooler air, 10 degrees. Sunday, of course, the clock's changing, so a little bit of a groggy start for us. And you know what? It will be worth the wait into the afternoon to go outside, and because Sunday afternoon looking a little more pleasant. But single-digit highs for the first week of November. Tom and Amy.
Here we go. Feeling like it. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, a white spruce from Lunenburg County has been selected as Nova Scotia's 2025 Tree for Boston.
The tree was nominated by the former property owners Ronald and Claire Feener. It stands at 13.7 meters tall. They planted the tree in the front yard 40 years ago.
Every year, the province sends a tree to Boston for the holiday season as a thank you to the city for sending medical personnel and supplies to Nova Scotia after the Halifax explosion in 1917. Well, many potato growers in Prince Edward Island are looking at adding irrigation systems after this summer's drought took a toll on their crop.
One company that supplies potatoes for chips says growers will be investing millions over the next couple of years to add water to their fields because they can't afford another summer like this one. Nancy Russell reports.
The harvest is wrapping up for Monaghan farms, and the lack of rainfall has had an impact. Not so much in the size of the potatoes, which will be made into potato chips, but in the quantity and the quality.
We're down, I would think, depending on the variety and what area it was, we're probably 25 to 35% for potato chips. We don't require big potatoes. But on drought conditions, with the lack of rain, they'll drop off the tubers throughout the summer. So the size isn't too bad, but the numbers aren't there.
Curley says they do a lot of testing on the potatoes to make sure they have the right level of sugar for making potato chips. And this year, the results have not been good.
But because when it's 30 degrees for weeks at a time and high winds around here, what we seem to be getting, those plants will just sit there and they won't continue to grow. And so that throws off the regular cycle that a potato would be going through. And so that's the big difference on the quality aspect from the finished product of a potato chip.
Monaghan Farms has 11 growers who provide potatoes and seed that are shipped to Frito-Lay. Terry Curley says all of them will now be adding irrigation at a cost of several $1 million.
Well, we've been looking at it for the last number of years, but we are going ahead with it now for next year. We can't continue to supply their international and local contracts without having a consistent supply.
The dry weather has taken its toll on potato fields across PEI and also across much of Atlantic Canada and Ontario.
Especially PEI. I think they've been the hardest hit, but from Ontario, Quebec, into the Maritimes, from mid-July onward, I would say, very, very dry.
Victoria Stamper says, like PEI, many other parts of Canada are also talking about expanding irrigation because of changing weather conditions.
Definitely the conversations are happening in the east on the ability to have irrigated crops to withstand a summer like we've seen this year.
The PEI potato harvest will wrap up completely by the end of the month. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Springfield.
Coming up, amid trade tensions with the United States, what can we expect for Nova Scotia's economy in 2026? We live in uncertain times with U.S. trade policy changing and immigration down. Our Nova Scotia economy is caught in the turbulence. At the same time, stock markets are on the rise. The business community is trying to make sense of it all. So what can we expect in 2026? David Chandi is president and CEO of the Atlantic Economic Council. So, sir, I know you're hosting your annual Business Outlook conference this week. No doubt, one of the largest uncertainties ahead has got to be the U.S. trade policy question. To what degree is Nova Scotia being affected by it already?
No, that's a great question. And I think one of the underlying things we need to emphasize is when we go back to earlier this year, we really weren't sure what to expect, but we knew that the effects could be significant. This is a big part of our economy that's dependent upon U.S. trade. And with the threat of 25% tariffs, we were really, it could really have been quite a significant blow. But I think the good news is our economy has been quite resilient. We haven't seen kind of that doomsday scenario we might have anticipated earlier in the year, and a lot of that is because a lot of our goods currently are able to get through to the US without paying those higher tariffs. So about 85% of Canadian exports are tariff-free. That's really cushioned a lot of that blow. However, if you're in certain sectors and just that general uncertainty have really caused businesses to cut back on hiring, cut back on investment, and invest in those U.S. relationships and other markets. So it really has dampened activity. We've certainly seen unemployment, GDP growth is slowing this year, and that's going to continue into next year with those effects continuing to ramp down economic activity.
And so more specifically, what are you seeing for the two biggies, Michelin tires and lobster exports, or what might you expect in 2026?
Well, I certainly can't comment on specific products of specific companies, but I think what we're seeing is demand in the US is having an impact. So even if you're not paying tariffs, US demand is slowing. That is therefore impacting a lot of our exporters. And we're also hearing reports of increased trade frictions. Just the paperwork processing of getting goods into the States seems to be tightening up, which again is a challenge. And again, it's not just about the US. I think we also have to recognize in our seafood sector, the Chinese tariffs are a big factor, and we've certainly seen a big drop in Nova Scotia. Exports to China down about 25% this year. So we're certainly seeing that, and that will continue to impact those exports until those tariffs are resolved or exporters are able to find other markets for those products.
Yeah, so you're drawing attention to some of the headwinds that we're facing here or there. When you look at what Ottawa's trying to do today, we actually saw the Bank of Canada drop interest rates. How much of an impact might that have?
Well, I think it will certainly help. I think we have to recognize the Bank of Canada is in a very challenging situation. Inflation is kind of up, slightly above its 2% target. It really wants to get that down, and tariffs and other pressures are nudging it up. And yet the economy is weakened, and so it's trying to balance this so that cut will be ease some of those pressures on consumer debt, for example. It will help businesses in terms of short-term financing costs. So it will ease that and provide that bit of stability, might have some softening effect on the exchange rate, but it's not really going to be a game changer. It just helps as much as they can to offset that softer economy. But I think that the main risk is still what happens with U.S. tariffs. We've had these threats of a further increase or a broader increase. Again, until we know exactly how that's going to play out, these are the factors that are really weighing on businesses, and the whole question about the current trade agreement with the US and the review that has to be agreed by July of next year. These are the factors that are really going to be weighing on businesses, and therefore will be a drag on economic activity and their decisions to invest in people and in machinery and equipment.
And I mentioned Ottawa there. What about the federal government? I mean, it slowed things on the immigration front for sure. How much of an impact is that having in Nova Scotia right now when you look at things, for example, like the workforce?
No, exactly. And I think when we look at our economic forecast, there's really two big factors. One is the tariffs from the US as well as China impacting that. And then the second one is our domestic policies around immigration and the reductions we've seen in those immigration numbers. And that is certainly having an effect here. Our forecast is population growth in Nova Scotia by the end of this year will be about 1%. That's about the slowest pace in 3 years. So across the region, we've really seen a slowdown that where, that's therefore, again, not making the same contribution to our housing market demand, to consumer spending, but it also means, we're also seeing weaker job growth, but it means we're getting a bit better of a balance. We're seeing that increasing housing starts in the province. There's less people coming, or not the same growth as we're seeing in recent years. So it's allowing kind of that labor market and the housing market to get back into balance a little sooner.
All right, and then we have the federal budget next week, which we haven't even touched on that, but we'll see how things goes with that. Really good to talk to you today, David Chandy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Coming up, Hurricane Melissa continues its trail of destruction through the Caribbean, bringing fierce winds and torrential rain.
And Canada-U.S. relations. Donald Trump and Mark Carney keep it civil at a dinner ahead of an economic conference in South Korea. Welcome back. Hurricane Melissa took aim at the Bahamas Wednesday as it continues its trail of destruction through the Caribbean. It made landfall in Cuba earlier in the day as a Category 3 storm, bringing catastrophic winds and flash flooding after slamming into Jamaica as the strongest storm on record to hit the island. The CBC's Katie Nicholson reports.
Hurricane Melissa's path of destruction clear in Jamaica's morning light. Melissa trashed the island with winds that at times gusted 320 kilometers an hour.
It was terrible. The wind, it was violent. It was terrible for all of us. I have a son here, and believe me, he was actually crying.
The terror of the storm now over, the unprecedented devastation only just beginning to hit home. An unconfirmed number of deaths, roads blocked by trees and debris, 77% of the country without power after large sections of the grid knocked out, homes ripped apart.
We still have to pick up the pieces and move on.
To that end, multiple countries and organizations are ready to help, including the UN.
I don't think there's any single soul on this island who was not affected by Hurricane Melissa.
The UN estimates roughly 1 million people, a third of the population, will need some form of help.
Some of the areas really remain unreachable in terms of getting resources there. We have serious challenges in terms of connectivity, so we cannot get the reports from those areas.
Melissa went on to hit Cuba next. Rainwater crept up to doors in the dead of night and tore down trees and roofs. While in rain-drenched Haiti, at least 40 people died, many when a river overran its banks. Today, floodwaters linger. I'm living with kids, she says. I have nothing to give them. We wake up in the water, we sleep in the water. Long after Melissa pummeled the Caribbean, the misery from its damage will persist. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says a new round of Israeli strikes have killed more than 100 people. It marks the deadliest day in the territory since the ceasefire began on October 10th. And it comes as both Hamas and Israel trade blame for truce violations. Julia Chapman has the latest.
The strikes targeted areas all across the Gaza Strip. The civil defense in Gaza says homes, temporary shelters, and an area near a hospital were all hit. And it was one of Israel's deadliest attacks on Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry says 20 women and 46 children were among the 104 killed. In one strike on the Barej refugee camp in central Gaza, the office of Benjamin Netanyahu says the prime minister ordered forceful strikes. The Israel Defense Forces says they were targeting Hamas sites and that this was a retaliation for ceasefire violations, including the killing of an Israeli soldier. Hamas has denied any involvement. The handing over of hostage bodies is also still a sticking point. Hamas says it's taking time to recover them because of the damage inside Gaza. Israel accuses Hamas of not holding up its end of the deal. And after last night's strikes, Hamas says it's postponing the return of one body. There are still arguments about another body that was handed over. Israel accuses Hamas of staging an excavation, while the group says that Israel is trying to come up with a pretext for further strikes. Donald Trump insists that the ceasefire isn't at risk. He, in fact, endorsed Israel's response when asked about it on Air Force One earlier.
They killed an Israeli soldier, so the Israelis hit back. And they should hit back.
Trump went on to say that Hamas should behave, and if they don't, they will be terminated. But there are other hiccups in the peace deal as well. The IDF says after last night's strikes, it is upholding the ceasefire once again, and Hamas also says it is still committed to it, but it remains extremely fragile. Julia Chapman, CBC News, London.
Prime Minister Mark Carney spent the day in South Korea as he continues his trip through Asia to promote new trade partnerships. But it seems he can't escape the ire of U.S. President Donald Trump over an Ontario government ad that used clips of a former Republican president saying tariffs don't work. A TV spot that led to the breakdown of trade talks with the Americans. Rafi Boudjikanian has the latest details.
Thousands of kilometers away from D.C., hard to escape the White House's pull. Mark Carney said he had no intention of interacting with the U.S. president in South Korea.
You have a message for President Trump, sir? I have a message for this president.
Trump also presenting a cold shoulder on social media, posting, "For those that are asking, we didn't come to South Korea to see Canada." But the two men ended up right across the table from each other at this dinner hosted by South Korea. Carney had little to say about how it went down.
Very good. Had a very good conversation with all the presidents.
When someone says, the first sign of a thaw after the White House halted trade talks last week, saying it's unhappy over a now pulled Government of Ontario ad showing part of a speech by former President Ronald Reagan criticizing the use of tariffs. The U.S. ambassador to Canada even insulted Ontario's trade representative in an expletive-laden tirade at a Canadian-American Business Council gathering in Ottawa Monday.
Pete, you got to call Dave up and apologize. It's simple. The intention wasn't to go poke the president in the eye. My intention was to get a conversation going.
Both Trump and Carney are also set for some one-on-ones with Chinese President Xi Jinping, aiming to restart their country's relationships with Asia's largest economy. For years, Ottawa and Beijing have not seen eye to eye. China accused of interfering in Canadian elections. Like the U.S., Canada placed punishing tariffs on Chinese electronic vehicle imports last year. Beijing struck back with their own on Canadian canola and pork, saying it would lift them if Ottawa drops its EV levies.
That dialogue has to be come with razor-sharp, eye-opened view.
Observers say Ottawa should tread carefully.
China does not view its foreign policy tools the way that we may view our foreign policy tools. And the second that it feels that it needs to leverage any of those economic tools, again, it absolutely will.
And there's Ottawa's business with South Korea itself. While he's here, Carney will visit the Hanwha shipyards on Thursday. Should Seoul win out on a multi-billion-dollar contract against Germany and Norway, that's where the Canadian Navy's next fleet of submarines would be built, cementing a budding trade and defense relationship with a new partner at a time the one with Washington is still on shaky grounds. Rafi Ujikani on CBC News, Gwangju.
The Bank of Canada has lowered its key interest rate for the second month in a row. It was cut by 25 basis points and now stands at 2.25%. That's the lowest it's been since July of 2022. But as Anis Haidari reports, it's not likely to drop any lower anytime soon.
Go Jays.
Go Jays.
Yes, go Jays. Thank you all.
The Toronto Blue Jays are looking up, but interest rates are down, now 2.25%, a 25 basis point cut. It could be the last cut for a while.
I hope our message is fairly clear today that, with this cut and based on this outlook, we think the current policy rate is about right. But we recognize there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
The trade war with the U.S. is damaging the Canadian economy, says the central bank. Lowering rates can't fix that, but could help. Lower interest rates make borrowing and business investments cheaper, but go too low and inflation can spike.
That's actually why they kind of went to said we're comfortable with where levels are today. In regards to lower interest rates in the Bank of Canada, inflation is the biggest risk. And by no means are we out of the hairs or the target of inflation.
Recent inflation numbers were a bit higher than the 2% target, but for now, the bank says it could stay under control. And as tariffs slam some sectors, economic growth could be weak this coming year. So while it's not getting worse by some measures, the bank is cutting rates since the economy may feel sluggish.
And it's kind of akin to driving along the 401 at 75 kilometers an hour, right? You're going forward, you're not in recession and going backwards, but you're getting past on the left and the right, and you don't feel like you're really moving like you should be.
U.S. tariffs have Canada changing who it trades with. The Bank of Canada may not have tools to make that easier.
And interest rates don't really have a big impact, but fiscal policy and capital spending and investment priorities probably do.
Those spending decisions and priorities could come up in the federal budget next week. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Tony Wakeham has been sworn in as Newfoundland and Labrador's 16th Premier, marking the Progressive Conservatives' return to power in the province after almost a decade. Wakeham unveiled his cabinet at Government House earlier today. Many of them will have more than one portfolio, including Helen Conway-Ottenheimer. She will not only be the province's Minister of Justice and Public Safety, but also the Attorney General, Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Disaster Management, and Minister of Women and Gender Equality.
It is another big night for the Toronto Blue Jays. Game 5 of the World Series is taking part in Los Angeles, with the teams tied at 2 wins each. But if you think the Dodgers have an advantage playing in front of a hometown crowd, think again. The CBC's Jamie Strachan has the story of all the Jays fans cheering from the stands.
Hit well. For Canadians living in California, and this one will go. It's a great time to be a Blue Jay fan.
So I live in San Francisco right now, so I've been tracking the Jays since they're doing well, over the years. And so as soon as there was an opportunity to come down here, I bought a ticket and I'm here.
In the air to left field. And there's been lots to cheer about. They get a great team effort.
I'm losing my voice right now after last night.
Amazing 6. Jays in 6. Jays in 6. Not quite the Rogers Center, but Blue Jays fans well represented.
Tons, yeah. In our section, there was a lot of fanfare and a lot of support. We had some friends in the crowd, so it was all good.
And the Blue Jay hats and jerseys sprinkled throughout Dodger Stadium haven't gone unnoticed.
Just really cool to see that, and we appreciate the support. For sure makes a difference, having people in the stands behind us, supporting us, and hearing those Blue Jays chants are great.
About 70,000 Canadians live here in California, the most of any U.S. state. For those not lucky enough to have a ticket, this West Hollywood restaurant has become the de facto headquarters for expat Blue Jay fans.
Let's go! Let's go!
It just picked up, and last night we had a nice big crowd, beautiful game, nice ending.
Owner Gianni DeFazio moved to LA in the early 90s. He says word is spreading that there's a spot in LA for Blue Jay fans to enjoy this World Series run.
My brother-in-law and I were both from Montreal, so they're learning that we're Canadian, so we're starting to develop a beautiful Canadian crowd.
The restaurant has been busy for games with a special Canadian-themed menu in place, designed to give fans a taste of Canada.
Smoked meat sandwiches, poutine, moosehead beer, so make all the Canadians feel at home.
Next up on the menu, hopefully another Blue Jay win. A chance for Canadians living here in California to proudly wear their Blue Jay colors. That's COLOURS. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Canada's main stock index closed down more than 270 points on broad-based losses, while U.S. markets posted mixed results. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to break.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
Yeah, we want the rain because we need the rain, but we want it at the right time. We want it all.
I know. It's the timing thing, right?
Yeah, and you know what? The timing is looking set to work out for western areas. Boy, I'll be eating my lunch tomorrow if something dramatic changes. But it does look like there's pretty good consistency tomorrow or for the next couple days, and that lining up with the rain clearing for western and central. We'll get to that in a sec. First, let's have a look at our viewer picture of the day. And this one, we're going to zoom in on Falmouth and Cal Collins, always contributing great pictures. Still the Reds holding on.
Very brilliant.
Yeah, thanks to Cal for this, hanging on even after that last wind event. But the leaves that are hanging on will be challenged over this next couple of days. There's the rain again. Our Halloween forecast, we'll update this, of course, tomorrow. But you can see that those western areas, the valley, the South Shore, and then into Metro around supper time, starting to see that rain clearing away. It's the Sheet Harbor, Guysborough, Eastern Shore, Pictou, Antigonish, and Cape Breton, where it doesn't look like, especially Cape Breton, it's really not looking set to clear until before most kids are heading in to count their rewards. So make sure that kids are prepared there. There's the system, right? So this is why it's still some uncertainty, is this is a big system, stretches all the way to the south, all of that tropical moisture coming in. So that's why we're looking at a shot of about 30 to 50 millimeters of rain. And then that cooler air wrapping in on the other side of this system. The winds from the southeast ahead of the system gusting 50 to 70. And then how about Saturday? Still howling from the other direction. Widespread gusts in the 50 to 70 range with some coastal gusts 80 to 90 possible, tapering off into the later stages of Saturday with some cooler, very November-ish air for next week.
Okay, get ready for it. Thanks, Ryan. Well, we are officially 100 days away today from the Winter Olympics in Italy. The opening ceremony for Milano Cortina 2026 is slated for February the 6th.
The games are scheduled to run from the 6th until February 22nd, and these will be the 4th Olympic Games to be held in Italy, and they'll happen at sites across Lombardy and the Northeast.
Team Canada will join more than 3,500 athletes from 93 countries, competing for medals in 16 Olympic sports.
Can't wait.
Countdown's on.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.